Welcome into a special edition of the DNVR Rockies podcast. I am your host, Allie Monroy. It is not Drew Creasman or Patrick Lyons on the show today. I'm your host, and I've got here Lyndsey Sauer, our DNVR sales director, Makayla Perkins, our social media director, and we are joined by Erin Lewis, president and founder of Denver Women's Sports Collective, Christina Mooney, vice president of Denver Women's Sports Collective, and Sam Bradfield, managing editor of Purple Row. And this is a special edition of the DNVR Rockies podcast because we are going to be talking about the incredible breaking glass ceiling of Kim Ng becoming a GM. Ladies, first of all, how are you all doing? And how excited are you guys to be on the show? Because I am so excited.
Yeah, so excited.
Very excited.
Okay, well, we, of course, are going to be talking about Kim Ng and her incredible accomplishment of becoming a GM of the Miami Marlins. Lyndsey, why don't you take it away with some of her incredible accomplishments that she has had thus far?
Yeah, thanks, Allie. So this is a really exciting time for all of us women and the young women that are getting into this industry. Some of Kim's accomplishments, you guys, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I had the wrong thing up. She has a long resume. She was the first female GM, of course, second GM of Asian descent. She has spent 30 years in the MLB. So it started in 1990 as an internship with the Chicago White Sox. She was a student at the University of Chicago at this time. And then in 1998, she became the assistant GM with the New York Yankees at age 29, which at that time was the youngest ever in that role. In 2001, she became the VP and assistant GM with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And in 2005, she interviewed for GM position with the Los Angeles Dodgers, but was not selected. And then she accepted a job working within MLB offices along the way as well. So a huge and very, very impressive resume.
What was everyone's first reaction to the news of Kim Ng? For me, I know I saw so many people online saying, oh, it's about time. It's taken long enough. But my first reaction was it may have taken long enough, but at least it's happening. At least it's happening. 2020 has been a crazy year. At least we've got some good out of it. Erin, why don't we start off with you? What was your first reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I have kind of a unique link, I think. Both my grandfather and great-grandfather were scouts, so that's kind of how I got interested in sports in the first place. But they're very old school, love them so much, but very old school. So a female thinking about even stepping into that role, they were like, oh, maybe you should look at the sales side, you know? So I think she's done such incredible things. I followed her since she was at the Yankees, and she's such a role model. And it's so funny because I'm sure she's had people in her life that said, maybe you should look at the marketing side or the public relations side, and she's like, no, I'm going to do the scouting thing, and she's been so tremendous with it. And that has Jeter bringing her on to the Marlins was such a huge step in him just being such an advocate for her talent as well. So even those doubters, she's kept right up with the conversation, and she's where she's at. And I don't even know the woman, and I'm just so personally proud of her.
Sam, how did you feel? Oh, Sam, we cannot hear you.
No, I'm unmuted.
There we go.
There we go. Must have accidentally pressed the mute button.
The good old mute button.
The good old mute button. I haven't used this mic in a while. But
that's it.
Anyway, I think my first reaction was just kind of like, holy crap. Like, this actually happened. I mean, 2020 within the last month or so has been huge for just women in general. And so seeing, not only do we have, female vice president elect, but we also have, Kim Ng as the first female GM in baseball. And I think that's it's huge. And I'm still trying to kind of wrap my head around it.
Totally. Makayla, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody knows me, they know how passionate I am about the sport of baseball. Baseball has been something that I have always been extremely passionate about and something that I've always wanted to be involved in. I was lucky enough to work for the Diamondbacks for 3 seasons, and it was life-changing. And, honestly, when I saw that Kim Ng was the first female general manager, I was in shock. I honestly, it took me a while to kind of process that information because, I thought that at one point in my life, I wanted to work in baseball analytics. And then I quickly found out that I'm horrible at math. So I had to change rather quickly. But, I thought that maybe I would have a shot at one day being a female general manager, but I thought it would take 20 or 30 years for that to happen. And that would happen so far down the road. So the fact that it happened now just kind of blew my mind because I didn't think that it was possible for it to happen now. So the fact that it did, it just was so incredible to see. And I got really emotional when they announced her as the next general manager. It was something that I never thought I would see now. So it was a really cool day for me.
I agree. I didn't think it would happen for a little bit longer, but seeing it happen now just made it that much better. Christina, what was your initial reaction to the news?
I am beside myself, everybody. I just feel with everything going on in 2020 being so rough for everybody across the world at this point, like Sam said, we've had a lot of big strides for females in general. And I think 2020 has been just this great platform for women. So when you look at, back in July, we had the first female Green Beret graduate and going into special forces. Me with a military background, that's a very huge step for females. We have projected 131 females in Congress, this new Congress, with 1/3 of it being Republican females. Then, like Sam said, we have, our female vice president, and now this. Every single parent is so excited. Now we can tell our little girls that you really can be anything that you want to be. And me as a mom with a little boy, I can now, work with him and say, hey, women, little girls and women are just as important and just as wonderful and just as successful as men. And this year has proved it. And I absolutely am just tickled. I'm getting goosebumps all over just listing these accomplishments of these women. It's fantastic.
It really is. Lyndsey, what about you?
Yeah, so you guys, I share that sentiment. I actually knew nothing about Kim before this. And so when I hear news of this caliber, it makes me so elated, not only, as you mentioned, Christina, as a mom and what my daughters can do and can accomplish, but it reminds me of when I was a little girl and I had 4 older brothers and I wanted to play every sport that they were playing, wrestling and football. And then when I had my children and you see the little girls wrestling now and you see little girls that are starting to try out for football teams. And then when you see somebody like Kim conquered this feat, I think that the sky is the limit, and it's just the most exciting thing ever.
That's a good transition into all of us growing up. Probably, at least for me, when I knew I wanted to be in sports since I was a sophomore in high school, and people didn't like that. People told me, oh, you'll never be successful. You'll never be in sports. You'll be living in your parents' basement if you try to do that. And I think we've all experienced a little bit of that negativity, that sexism. And Lyndsey, you have a great quote that you read about that.
Yes. Lindsay Adler with The Athletic had a great article on Kim. And I thought that this stood out really well. She said, sexism is nebulous. It's insidious. People often think of it like some sort of wrecking ball, clear to see, totally destructive. It's not a wrecking ball. It's some sort of airborne particle. It floats around and we live in its world, not the other way around. And this really spoke to me because the one Twitter comment when announcing our live podcast today was, are you all aware that she's GM only by name and Jeter is still pulling strings? Hill left likely due to Jeter's dabbling, and they hadn't had the GM position in Miami. So I think that we often hear comments like this throughout the years, and it just speaks perfectly to it happens all the time. And these comments don't come in as a wrecking ball. They're not obvious, but women have had to deal with it throughout their entire life.
Yeah, it definitely, something that we talked about when we read that comment was it can never just celebrate that Kim Ng's accomplishments. Let's celebrate her. It doesn't, one, it's probably not true. And two, let's just focus on breaking glass ceilings that have not happened before. What do you guys think about that? Erin, let's start off with you. What do you think about that comment that we got for this podcast?
I think you guys working in media should know the golden rule: never read the comments.
Very true. Very true.
Honestly, that's a huge part of why we founded DWSC. It's like, I don't think it's so much about the people that are going to be chirping in your ear, the people that have that negative outlook. I think it's surrounding yourself with people who are going to celebrate your accomplishment, which obviously Kim has done, and Derek is a huge person in her corner. I think that just like that comment alone, I was trying not to laugh because he was like, oh, that guy just. And
we all know that guy.
And it's awful because it's like I assumed it was a man who wrote it. I don't even know. And it's
that's true.
And it's just that's pretty terrible of me. But I think I think you got to surround yourself with people who are going to celebrate your accomplishments, and that's the people that are most successful are the people that do that. They don't read those comments. They don't, and if they do, they have a good laugh and they move on. I think especially me having a sales background in sports, you've got negativity is 90% of the day sometimes, especially with on-field performance. But I think once you're able to eliminate how that impacts you, I think that's a huge, huge success factor in the remainder of your career. So I think to me that comment kind of makes me laugh because it's like there's always one, one or nine.
Always one.
Always, no matter what.
There really always is one. And I also assumed it was a man, but maybe it was a woman. And that's something else that I think Denver Women's Sports Collective is doing, and what we definitely are trying to do here in the Denver media is everyone should have a seat at the table. It's not, and encourage each other and help each other become more successful instead of trying to be just that one. And I think we see that, especially with your organization.
I think too, for us, we're making such a big push on our allies program, which is like, yes, we're a women's group. We're founded by women. We're working towards women empowerment, but we want male allies. We want men to come to the table and talk to us and tell us their thoughts. And someone like that, I want to invite that person, male, female, to one of our meetings. I want them to contribute to our conversations and let us know what they think and have a healthy, productive conversation. But again, that's the whole goal of our organization is to break those barriers and open those doors and windows to people who feel that way.
And I think something that we've talked about here at DNVR is that, sure, you're going to get those negative comments, especially from social media. But at least from our experience, Makayla, you touched on this a little bit. It has been pretty positive. Of course, I've gotten some hate on certain sides, and I know a lot of women have. But Makayla, you were talking about how your experience in this field has been positive, and so women who are looking to get into this field shouldn't be pushed away, thinking that they're going to have such harsh criticism from men. Makayla, do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that comes with there just being a generational difference. The women who are older than me and paved a path for me had to deal with unimaginable adversaries that I haven't had to deal with, but that's because they took that step and they were brave enough to really start breaking into that industry so that I would have a smoother transition into the industry. But I have been so fortunate to not have any really negative experiences, whether it be with a player or a coach or somebody in the front office or any of my coworkers. I mean, I can think of a handful of males who have been my biggest advocates and my biggest supporters. My boss at Arizona Sports, Rod Lakin, my boss at DNVR, Brandon Spano, everyone at DNVR, honestly, Drew and Patrick, who let us be on this podcast today, my boss at the Diamondbacks, Jeff Cederbaum, all of these incredible men who really see the value that women bring to the table, and they want to help foster that value, and they want to help promote that value and show other people that women have a seat at this table and we deserve to work in sports, and we are more than capable of working in sports. And so for young women who aren't sure if they want to go into this field or are interested into going into sports, do it. It's going to be an incredible experience, and a lot of it has to do with the older women who helped pave the way for us. But I think it is changing. You know, we're not where we want to be right now, but I think there are positive things happening. And, you know, with a female general manager, a female play-by-play broadcaster, or whatever it might be, there are so many positives that we have to look forward to. And getting into this industry, you shouldn't be scared or worried, because there are people that are willing to help you and that will be on your side no matter what.
Definitely. You guys already talked about it, but the amount of accomplishments that women have had this year, and even here in town, Jenny Kavanaugh are killing it with the Rockies. And we see that with so many coaches. It's not just Kim Ng, and it's just so exciting to see. Sam, Christina, do you guys have any comments before we move on just kind of that sexism and that hate that we can receive?
Wow. Where do I even want to start? So
how much time do we have?
I mean, obviously, you know, like I said earlier, with the military background and then coming into sports, you know, I'm very accustomed to the male industry, or the man's world concept. And it is very challenging for women who are putting their best foot forward and trying to, you know, do what they can to prove their worth in a sense. But what I have found is that the negative comments tend to show a fear of change. And I think it is also this preconceived notion that women can't do a man's job. And what I've loved most, something that Kim said, she said, make your reputation as good as you can make it, and let it carry you through. And I think that she really hit the mark on that. And something that I try to tell a lot of young women that are coming into this industry is that, you know, let your passion, let your drive lead you down that path, because ultimately that's what's going to put you into the spotlight. And so I think she's a perfect example of that entire concept, is that she, you know, she was driven, she was composed, she was professional, and she just loved the sport so much that she just kept going and she persevered. And I think that that's what a lot of women just have to keep going and keep doing, even with all the negative comments, because ultimately it's just, you know, we assume a guy potentially wrote that, but it could be just a fear of change in this, you know, this preconceived notion that we should be, you know, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, which is no longer about it, you know, so.
Exactly.
But you
Sam?
were barefoot and pregnant in the Army, so.
Well, no,
We can do both.
I actually do have a photo of me right before my sister's bridal shower. I did her bridal shower, and I was barefoot and pregnant and cooking in the kitchen. And I still have that picture, and it's like the most cringeworthy picture because it, like, everybody just thinks it's so funny. But it's funny, but it's also not, right? Because that's a stereotype that women constantly have to fight. And when you are a strong female in this world, and it's specifically in male industries, you are, you know, you're classified as being bossy and pushy and mean. But realistically, you know, we might be doing the exact same thing as a guy, but we're just titled something different. And that's something that has been with me forever. And all of these accomplishments by these women and Kim, it's just gratifying. It just is rewarding, and kind of just saying like, hey, like, it's okay to be the master of your own destiny. And it's sorry, that's my little rant. But yeah, I have a picture. I have a picture of it.
No, I think people are really scared of change, including women. And so that could have very well been a post written by a woman. But I think with today's society, we see that so much. It has to be either or instead of it can be mixed in between. It can be both. And no one over here is saying, if that's what you love to do, if you love to be in the kitchen cooking and you want to stay at home and be that type of mom, good for you. Go do that. But also acknowledge the accomplishments that other women who have a different mentality are creating opportunities for more and more people. And so I feel like in today's society, it's just always one side or the other, when it can be both. It can be, you can be killing it in a broadcast seat and then also be making a mean key lime pie at home. It doesn't have to be
with the
such
kid at
opposite.
your feet.
With the kid at your feet.
Exactly.
And let's not forget that
under your feet.
And let's not forget that is the absolute hardest job in the world to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I love all those women. I wanted to get into a quick break here, you guys. We have amazing sponsors, and one of them is DraftKings, which is America's top-rated app sportsbook. And we are in week 10 of football. It's in the books, and now it's time to review the tape and get ready for week 11. There's no better place to get in all the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook. We have an incredible team of Ryan Koenigsberg and Andre Simone that hosts a DNVR Bets Daily, Monday through Friday, that gives you all the best rundown, all the Maction bets you want, football bets, baseball bets when it's in season, all of those good things. So tune into them for all of the great expert analysis. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new users the chance to earn a sign-up bonus up to $1,000 when signing up using code DNVR. And they have endless ways for you to bet. So live betting on your favorite players, they do it all. Don't worry if football isn't for you. DraftKings is giving all MMA fans who sign up now the chance to triple their winnings for any bet placed on UFC. DraftKings is safe, it's reliable, and secure, so making it easier for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR when you sign up and get up to $1,000. That's code DNVR to get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
So most people listening to this DNVR Rockies podcast will hear Drew and Patrick reading these ad reads, but Lyndsey's the one who creates them. So it's a fun little dynamic to see her reading these ads now, because she normally isn't on any podcast. So you did a great job, Lyndsey.
Yeah, it's not easy. They do a great job. They do it much better than me, but thank you.
One of my great. Yeah, right? I thought you did a great job.
Natural.
One of my
sales.
Exactly. Exactly. One of my favorite quotes from Kim is this one. It says, "I think I've made the sight of a woman in a position of authority not so odd. I feel an interest in young girls in baseball. I feel an interest in college-age women interested in going into sports in the near future. I think I've made it not as different, not as out of the ordinary, and in some ways more acceptable." And we can all agree that's what we've been talking about this whole time. But I want to ask you guys, truly, what change do you see coming out of this? How is this going to mold future generations with seeing a woman as a GM of a Major League Baseball team? Sam, we'll start with you.
I definitely see more women, coming into these higher up positions. I mean, not only as general manager, but even in the lower kind of down, if you will. We talked about Jenny Kavnar doing play-by-play. I mean, that's been up and coming. You've got Melanie Newman doing it for the Orioles this year a couple of times. And I think, and especially in the minor leagues, there's a lot of women doing, announcing in the minor leagues. So I think just overall the landscape is definitely going to gear, I think, more female in, in any position. And that's, just everywhere.
Definitely. Makayla, when we were having our conversation before the show started, you talked about a bunch of women that you wanted to mention on here that have just broken barriers this year. So I'll let you take over on that.
Yeah, we kind of touched on a couple of them. Alyssa Nacken is the first female head coach, but a first female full-time coach in Major League Baseball for the San Francisco Giants. Sam mentioned another one, Melanie Newman is doing play-by-play for the Orioles. Jessica Mendoza she was the first woman to do World Series as an analyst. So, there's a ton of women in baseball who are continually breaking those barriers, with Kim Ng kind of being the crown of it all. So it's a really cool thing to see. that there are so many women in so many different areas. I think that representation matters and visibility matters. And, Kim Ng said it in her press conference, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And now you can be it. And, when I first went to my journalism school, I called it the Erin Andrews box, because you go to school as a woman wanting to work in sports. And, when I was growing up, the only woman that I really saw was Erin Andrews and Michelle Toya on the sidelines, which is awesome. Being a sideline reporter is one of the hardest jobs in sports, and I will stick by that 100%. And, as hard as it may be, that was the only thing that I saw. And so when I went into school, that's what I thought I had to be. I thought, okay, well, if I want to work in sports, I have to be a sideline reporter. And I quickly found out that I don't want to be a sideline reporter after I found out that I couldn't do math and I couldn't be a GM. But that's what it was. I only saw those two women on the sidelines. And so that's what I only thought I could be. I didn't hear women on sports radio. You still hardly ever hear women on sports radio. That whole demographic is old white men. I didn't think that I could work in social media because social media was still an up and coming thing. I didn't think that I could do any of the things that I see women doing now, being a coach, being a play-by-play broadcaster, being a general manager, just because I didn't see it. But now all of these women are doing these things, and I feel like I can do that too because they're doing it. And so there's going to be a whole generation of young women who are growing up with these types of role models doing these jobs, and they're going to think, I can do that too. So, when they start thinking of their career paths and where they want to go to school and what they want to study, maybe these things will be at the forefront of their minds. And as they get older, we're going to start seeing more women in the industry, which is amazing. That's all you could ever really ask for. So I think representation is so important. Visibility is so important. And, hopefully Kim Ng is just the first, and it's the first domino to fall. And we'll have, a head coach in the NBA and a general.
Becky Hammond.
Yes. Go Rams. Woo.
All that good stuff. So I'm just really excited for the future. I think there's going to be a bunch of young women who are going to be able to dream big because they see women doing what they want to do one day. So it's really encouraging.
And I really love this image that we brought up here. It's just such a cool visual. And I've seen so many people being like, oh, now I'm a Marlins fan. Sorry, Rockies. It's just such a cool thing to see. Erin, what do you think this will mean for future generations?
Yeah, I think, and Christina's going to roll her eyes because I think I repeat this quote about once a week now, but I read a really powerful quote at the start of quarantine, and it was, a job description can be out there and a man can statistically only qualify for 50% of the characteristics within that job description and still apply, where a woman tries to fit 90% of that mold before she applies. And I think that it just resonates with this, right? So there were a million guys in this industry, and Kim's like, okay, so, where a lot of women were like, oh, I don't know, I'm not going to be the first. And it's like, why not? Well, what really? Yeah. Why not? And I think now having her just open that door for so many other women, it's sad, but it's the realization that a lot more women will feel more comfortable pursuing that now because someone's already done it. And I think that goes for a lot of things, male, female, you never want to be the first, right? And you want to kind of see how it goes before you're the one who takes the bullet. And again, and I think she's still got a long and hard road ahead of her. If she fields a championship team this year, and all of us knowing sports and baseball pretty well knows it takes a little bit more than a year to create a difference when you're a new GM. But I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on her. And I think it's awesome that I'm sure she has moments where she sits in her house and she's like, oh gosh, today was one of those days. But I think that she's done such an incredible job making sure that she's a representation of something that no one's ever seen before, and that she's still going to push forward no matter how hard it gets. And it's just incredible. It's just everything she's done is incredible without someone having done it before her.
Exactly. And she has the qualifications to be in this role. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenge. Being a GM of any team in any sport is so hard. We see it happening here in Denver. And so but she has the qualifications, and she has so many quotes saying like, no, I'm going to do this. I will be the first to win a World Series. And she's just taken this on as another challenge. And like you guys had said earlier, it just makes her an even better role model, because she's not going to sit back and be like, all right, I'm GM. Awesome. I did it. No, she's going to be the first woman GM to win a World Series. And it's going to be awesome to see. Lyndsey, I think I interrupted you when you started, or Christina?
No, I don't. I was going to say this. I think that, women break so many barriers when they get into new roles, particularly. So what's next for Kim, right? I know that this is going to be challenging. I know that she has a lot ahead of her, but when women get into roles like this, I mean, robo-lumps, Kim, that's all I need to say.
Don't read the
You're
comments,
working on
Kim.
that.
and during her press conference, when she was speaking, she said, when I got the announce, or when he told me, there was a 10-pound weight lifted off of the shoulder for about 10 seconds. And then it went to the other shoulder. And I think it's a very true statement. And I think that's very common, no matter if you're going into a higher level position. And so it's how you react to that. And she even admitted, she was like, hey, I have my bad days, but then I pick myself up and I keep going. And I think that is a very strong driving force that females need to kind of keep and remember. It's not going to be easy, but it will be rewarding as long as you keep pushing forward and you keep trying your hardest. And I think that I admire that of Kim so much, that she just said, hey, this wasn't easy, but I just kept going. And I think that that's what a lot more of our younger generation needs to hear.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think Kim is the perfect person to break this glass ceiling, because not only is she completely overqualified, spending 30 years in baseball with the Dodgers, the Yankees, the league offices, whatever it might be, but she also never gave up. I mean, she got told no so many times. And I can't imagine, being that one woman, being in an interview pool of however many men, and being told no so many times, but she never gave up. And I think that speaks to her character. And I think that also speaks to the things that we can look forward to in the future, because I think she is going to not only be successful in this role, but whatever role is next for her after this as well. And so knowing that you have something to look forward to, and you just want to watch what she does next, is also highly encouraging, because I think she is the perfect person for this job. And so it'll be really cool to see what she does in the future as well.
I tried to help Lyndsey for like 2 weeks in sales, and the amount of times you hear no, I was like, I don't think this is for me. I think I cold called like 50 or 60 businesses, and this was like years ago, and I was like, oh my God, it really takes a strong woman to be hearing a no, 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 no. And then when you hear that yes, just bouncing and being like, all right, let's go. Let's take on this challenge. And so being in sales, Lyndsey, I admire you, and anyone else in sales, because that is a hard job.
Yeah, you too, Erin. Thank you,
Yeah,
Allie.
I think too, like, people forget how emotional sports is, especially for the person on the other side of the phone when you're calling them, trying to sell them a ticket or an advertisement. Like, people have, like, for me, it stems all the way back to my childhood and my grandfather, and like, someone says something like, oh, this team stinks, and I'm like, hey, that's my grandfather's team. It's like there's such this emotional attachment that we have to sports that the sale can sometimes be an irrational conversation. But I think once you can learn that and be able to talk like on the same level, and so that person knows, like, hey, we have this same emotional attachment to this same team, and we have that commonality, I think is huge when you're in the sports sales world.
Yeah, I think we should transition into a little bit, especially with Erin and Lyndsey here, on that business side of it, because not only is it hard to just be on the side of being on camera or reporting or writing as a woman in sports, but selling sports in a male-dominated industry is very challenging. Lyndsey, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the points that you ladies made about how hard Kim has worked is the first, and like you said, Christina, what the new generation really needs to take hold of. Everything that we accomplish is due to hard work, and being not only in a male-dominated space, I was comfortable in that space because I grew up with 4 older brothers, so I always talked sports, loved, ate breathe sports. But now I'm talking to men, and we connected in the sports world, but I was still seen as someone that was a little inferior because of being a woman. And I was intimidated by that when I was walking into big boardrooms. And so it took time for me I'm a very confident human, but it took time for me to break through that particular barrier. And I just, want to tell young ladies out there that might want to be on the business side. I had no aspiration of being on the field, of calling a game. That was not my particular dream. I've always loved sales. So to all the young ladies that still want to be in sales and on the business side, but are working in these male dominated industries, that you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. Don't back down to anybody, just because there's 5 men in that room, 10 men in that boardroom doesn't mean that you're less. And it doesn't mean that you can't accomplish anything that you're trying to accomplish.
Snap on that.
All the snaps.
That's the
I
tea.
think too, it kind of goes back. There's a scene that we put on the screen earlier that was Kim talking to a team, and just the way, her body language, the way she commands a room. I think confidence is everything. And I'll be the first to tell you, my first sales job, I was not the most confident person in the room, and it took me quite some time for it to click. But I think that's a huge part of any role that you're going to take in this industry, is just having that confidence in yourself. And there's a reason you're there and that you got the job, and just letting that carry you through the first stages. You're going to make mistakes. I'm sure Kim made mistakes in her first few weeks as in baseball, especially as an intern. I'm sure we all have that intern story that we would cringe to tell another person. But it's just, I think, just commanding a room, having that confidence, being okay with making a mistake here and there. And then again, surrounding yourself with people who are going to believe in that confidence in you as well. I've had so many incredible role models in this industry that were male, so many that were female. And again, it's important when you're looking for a job, as much as you want the role and the organization looks great, finding that culture and those people that are going to cultivate you into a successful person is just as important as the role that you're going to have yourself.
That's a great transition into Drew here asking a question. I wonder how Sam feels being in charge of a largely male staff working over at Purple Row.
See, that's actually funny because our staff isn't as male dominated as it used to be. When I came on, it was me and Renee and another woman named Hannah. And Hannah is not with us anymore, but Renee is still on staff. And then we had this huge hiring, we did a bunch of hiring last September-ish, 2019-ish. And we added Becca and Joelle and AJ, who's not with us anymore. And we also have, I'm trying to think, we also have another Sam Burge. So we have to differentiate there on our staff. And we had overall, it's not as male dominant. I can actually look up. But overall, I think it hasn't been too bad. I've been in this role since January, but I've kind of slowly worked my way up. And I think just, by proving myself again, I jumped in the deep end and went to Carlos Gonzalez's welcome back press conference. And I think that really helped me out. But overall, I haven't had any issues with it. All of my editors, I have 3 additional editors, Ben, Adam, and Erin, and Justin, and they've been fantastic. And overall, it hasn't been too bad. Everybody's respectful of each other and we all work pretty well together, and yeah, it's a good time.
I think from what I've heard from my friends, I feel like Denver media, I feel like we're very fortunate. And maybe it's because we are technically a smaller city than the East Coast, but some of the hate from fans and then also coworkers definitely is a lot more intense than I feel like my experience talking to many different women in media here in Denver is. And I'm so thankful for that, because you listeners and everyone watching this and all of our coworkers are just very with the times of encouraging women to succeed and be confident and try whatever they want to do. Here at DNVR, I have to produce and manage all of these all of our talent, which is a good amount male, and they are a bit of a pain in the ass, but I love them. And they're like little brothers to me, or big brothers. And I've just always been so encouraged by them. Like this podcast was Patrick and Drew's idea. They wanted to give us an outlet to express how we feel about this crazy, incredible thing happening in baseball. And so I'm just so fortunate. And I think just going back to what Sam was saying, we are very fortunate in Denver to have a little bit more of a progressive mindset on women in sports.
Yeah,
Christina,
definitely.
Love it.
Christina, do you have any other comments on that? I feel like we skipped over you. So I just want to make sure we get to you.
No. So during a Veterans Day speech that I did with DWSC, one of the things that I had mentioned at our event was, when you think of a formation, you think of a man leading it. We need to change the image and be the one leading a formation of the men. And then there was a video that popped up that was me marching an entire platoon, a huge formation during a Veterans Day parade. And I think what is absolutely very inspiring in hearing more about Sam, because we haven't had a chance to officially meet, is that you are that image that I was just projecting to these members for DWSC. You are the motivation that is driving that force. And so it's really incredible to me coming into the sport industry, that connection that is very similar to what women feel in the military. We get very, very tight with our female military members, and it really is the same thing in the sports industry. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, we're able to lead a group or manage a group of gentlemen who are very skilled in what they do with a level of respect that is sometimes not offered to a woman in the same position. So it is a big challenge, but I think it's very inspiring for people to listen to these kind of podcasts and watch these live streams to say, these women are doing it, and they're leading the charge, they're leading the formation. And I'm very thankful for everybody at DNVR for allowing us to come on and having this wonderful idea of doing this. I think it's fantastic.
My cat is joining us. I'm sorry.
I could see that. I was like, oh, what is that?
Yeah, he just woke up and he likes my headphones. So.
Oh, we have Drew here saying, am I a little brother or a big brother? What do you guys think, Lyndsey, Makayla?
Big brother.
No, little brother.
I'll be deciding factor.
Drew, you're an ally.
I see
There
all
we
the guys at DNVR as little brothers, because me, Lyndsey, and Allie really run the show, so they all have to
command that confidence. Get it, girl.
Speaking of, I do think at least our CEO here, Brandon Spano, says he tweeted out one day, every time I put a woman in a position, they make their job incredible. And so I feel like that's something else that we will see, is that adding more women into the room adds a different type of voice, but also we are more of that motherly style. That's the way that we are. And so I think that adding that into the room, like Makayla said, I feel like they're all of our little brothers, because we do take care of them. We are the ones who are getting the show back on the road after they go way off the rails, and we're kind of pushing things forward. Makayla, Lyndsey, if you guys have any comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about balance, right? And so I think that, first and foremost, this podcast, we want to look at all the positive of this great feat that Kim, has taken on, and that we will watch her just grow and blossom in this role. And I know that I'm sure has many, many men allies, and she has a great dad, great, siblings, maybe. I don't know anything about her, but I'm sure she's had a lot of male role models, and we all need that. We need the balance of men and women in all important roles. And I think that, I just want to kind of go a little bit off the rails here, Allie, but I want to.
It's okay. I'll allow it.
But I want to segue into, who are your allies? Who championed you to get into the positions and the roles that you are in today as you were growing up? That goes to Allie. Or
Who's kicking this off?
Yeah.
So I was really fortunate that I grew up in a female household, a single mother who is probably the strongest woman on the face of the planet. If you're a single mom, you have the hardest job in the world. And so being raised by a single mother is what instilled my confidence in myself as an independent woman. And I was also very fortunate to live with my grandmother for 18 years as well. So, I was an older sister to my brother, and having two older females in my life who were the definition of beauty, grace, and strength really shaped me as an individual. But I was also fortunate to have those women also be interested in sports. My grandma has been a diehard Denver Broncos fan, and I would be up in my room and I could hear her yelling at the television when the Broncos were playing every single Sunday. And watching her passion for the Broncos is really what kind of got me interested in sports. Obviously if grandma's watching the Broncos, I'm going to watch the Broncos too. And, my mom played D1 or D3 basketball. She was a national champion at her school. And so, getting her influence and then my grandmother's influence just helped shape me in my character. But then, them being strong women made me a strong woman. And then they just encouraged me to pursue whatever I wanted. And so when I went to my mom and I told her, Mom, I've been watching football with grandma and I understand all these things about football, but I don't know anything about baseball and I don't know anything about basketball. She was like, well, why don't you be the manager of your high school team so you can learn about statistics and you can learn to keep the book and all of that kind of stuff and get to know the X's and O's of that sport. And so she encouraged me in that direction. And once I, was the manager of the baseball team and the basketball team, and I started to really form that love of sports, that's when I thought that having a career in sports was possible. But that all just came from my mom and my grandma. And so it was really great having that type of female influence in my life growing up, because I don't think I would be where I am today if it weren't from the encouragement from my mother and my grandmother.
That's awesome. I think I have a little bit, definitely a different story. I grew up with my two younger brothers and my dad, and we grew up in Philadelphia. So diehard Eagles fans. If you're not an Eagles fan in Philadelphia, there's something wrong with you. That's how they treat it. And my brothers would always watch it with my dad, and my dad would explain the game to me and stuff. But my brothers would be a little bit more on that sexist side, oh, really? Do you know? And my passion for proving them wrong was well, actually, I do know. Let me explain this to you. And thankfully, my mom, again, was a strong woman who was just yeah, research it. If you care about it, then research it and prove them wrong. Tell them everything you know. And so having them kind of push me in that opposite direction prepared me for some of that negativity that we do here and made me want to work harder to prove everyone who feels that type of way wrong. And now they don't think that way because I definitely know more than them in a lot of aspects. So, but mine's thankfully my mom always pushed me to prove people wrong and just keep leading. And if I'm passionate about something, then go for it. And so that's definitely helped me. Erin, what about you?
I think I'll give my dad the credit on this one. As I grow through my career from a professional standpoint, I've had tons of male allies, but my dad specifically, I grew up in Boston. So again, if you're not a Boston sports fan, there's something wrong with you. It's like a religion. So I grew up in Boston, and all my friends at school were always talking about sports, but my grandfather scouted for Detroit. So my dad was a pretty passionate Detroit Tigers fan. And it was kind of one of the only things that me and my dad had in common was watching baseball together and just going over what was happening on TV and him just talking to me he never saw me as someone who wouldn't have known anything less than him. It was more just something we could bond over. And I always joke that watching baseball with my dad is my favorite, not because of all the great memories we have, but because he doesn't talk. So when we go so we can actually watch baseball and absorb what's happening and talk about it later, but just enjoy the game for what it is. And I think that, and again, I think all of us can say we got into sports because we have such great memories as kids, whether our involvement with sports, which I played sports throughout high school and in middle school. And I think we all have this strong attachment to sports, but I think my real passion and this is something I love. I can wake up every day and say I love going to work because of that start of just watching baseball followed my dad. So I would say he's probably my biggest ally. And he's a huge Avs fan now. So any team I go to, he just is a huge fan of course. So anywhere I go, I said it's like the weirdest combination. He's like Avs, Patriots, Padres, because I was at the Padres, Buccaneers. I'm like, you're Detroit. I'm like, you're just all over the map. But at least you have that affiliation. So we'll give it to you. But I would definitely say my dad.
That's awesome. Sam, what about you?
See, I feel like I'm a little, I guess, less traditional. My dad and my brother hate sports. Like,
interesting.
they like literally don't like sports. So, I mean, my mom and I have bonded over baseball recently, but like as a kid, I played like rec league sports. I never was on the school team. I never really did anything. I was a band kid. I played music. So sports was kind of my own. I kind of came into it just being in the marching band on the football team, like on the football sidelines. And I just kind of picked it up and, to kind of, talk to the boys in the marching band. And then kind of picked it up from there. And then, even with baseball, like my grandpa was really, really into baseball. He was a White Sox fan. But he died when I was 6. So didn't quite get over the hump to really like spending a lot of quality time together over baseball. And then in college, I, again, being in marching band, watching football and then going to the basketball pep band games and just kind of stuff like that, kind of picked it up. And I liked baseball. And the more I got to know it, the more I got to love it. So a lot of my like love for sports has kind of come on my own doing. And I've been lucky enough since I started at Purple Row is just kind of hey, I'll apply for it. Why not? I've had some really great allies. Eric Garcia McKinley was the managing editor before me, and he was phenomenal, like helping me get started and, giving me opportunities to go in the press box. And we started, did some podcasts. We did various other things. Sorry, my cat is like trying to corral the cat. And then even like once I got into the press box, like Thomas Harding has been phenomenal. Like if you guys don't know Thomas, he is like one of the best people in the world. And he's been absolutely phenomenal helping me out. And even like, Drew's been great, and Patrick and Nick Groke and Kevin Henry and Patrick Saunders, and even, the PR staff, Warren Miller, Corey Little, and Abby Saunders and Nick Parson. They're all just wonderful people and have really kind of helped me. I haven't been in sports that long. I've been working in sports for 3 years now, and it's all been kind of my own doing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I love that.
Thanks.
Christina, what about you?
Yeah, I was thinking about as you guys were going through. So it's changed over the last year. So growing up, my mom was definitely my biggest ally, my biggest cheerleader. She would take me to football games. We would watch Broncos nonstop in our house every weekend. And she would make like special, the little meanie weenies with barbecue sauce. She used to,
the best.
Oh, yeah. But she would, I was the wrestling manager at my high school. She would come and, be the loudest mom. If she came to any of our high school sports, she was the loudest mom, even if I was not playing. And she was fantastic. She taught me the rules of wrestling. She taught me the rules of football, baseball. She got me into t-ball. Growing up, she was the one that really introduced me into sports. Unfortunately, she passed away last July. And what I found very remarkable about it was that she was my biggest cheerleader. She was my biggest motivator. I could call her about anything. And the allies have shifted in my family. So now it's my sister and it's my dad. And they're the ones that are supporting me and pushing me and are now the biggest allies that I have from a personal standpoint. From a professional standpoint, it would be Cameron, my boss. I won't say where, but he, coming into the sports industry and sports world, I really did not have much of a sports background. I have 10 years experience in events. Well, sport games and concerts are events. And so what I loved about, him is that he saw and recognized the qualities that I had and said, you know what, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you grow. And I believe that you can do it. And I have confidence in you. Let's just get you there and you'll be unstoppable. And I thought that was just absolutely amazing. And to have, to have Dan Evans standing by Kim's side and supporting her and believing in her, that's what we all tend to need every now and then. And so I think for me, from a professional standpoint, my biggest one would be my boss, Cameron, for sure.
From a professional standpoint on me, when I started working for DNVR, I was covering the Buffs and was definitely trying to do as much as I possibly could to be in the industry, but was really nervous and just my confidence level had dropped. And I was hired by Will Whalen and Ryan Koenigsberg and Jake Shapiro, and they just believed in me so much that I'm like, wow, if you believe in me, I need to believe in myself as much as you guys believe in me. And they were always just so behind anything I wanted to do. And so professionally, I would thank them so much for helping me gain that confidence back. And then now being in the position I am mainly looking back at those guys for helping me back then. Lyndsey, what about you? Who are your allies?
Yeah, so I am going to just take this moment and give another shout out to our sponsors over at Strava Craft Coffee first. You guys,
you take us off the rails and then you put us back on.
Bring it right back in. Bring it right back in. You guys, it's the best damn coffee you'll ever taste. It's CBD infused, so it helps with tons of ailments.
Sell
I know.
these people.
See? Yeah,
I know, right?
I'm saying.
Okay, wait a minute.
It helps with all kinds of ailments, migraines, IBS. It helps just relax the body to have better night's sleeps. If you're ever in the area, especially today or tomorrow, stop by the DNVR bar before we go into another shutdown. We have iced Strava craft coffee on tap here. It's amazing.
I'll be there.
What's cool about Strava is that you now can have a subscription to Strava and save 20% all the time. So you can get your coffee delivered every 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks. It's super convenient, comes straight to your door. And you save 20% off, which anything with CBD in it or that's infused with CBD is a higher price because of that element. And so saving that 20% off every single month is really awesome. If you just want to try it out for the first time, you can use DNVR20 and get 20% off at checkout. So go check Strava out. Now, you guys, you said,
hold on, Lynn.
Oh,
Sam is going to have to head out in just a few minutes. So I just want to ask her one quick question, especially with Sam working at Purple Row here in Denver. What is one thing you wish you would have told your younger self, or you want the younger generation who's applying to jobs like applying to Purple Row to do or to learn from learn from your own mistakes?
I mean, I think the big thing just is, go for it. I mean, my story with how I got to Purple Row was kind of a funny one. I met this couple at Chase Field in Phoenix who was from Denver and friended them on Facebook, and some article popped up from Purple Row, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I should like it. And then they had the job opening, and I was like, why not just try it out? And, in college, I was a music major, but I always thought about switching and doing something more in sports and like sports broadcasting or something, and just never quite had the balls to do it. And so after graduation, I found the job and was like, you know what, I'll try it out. And so maybe if you want to do it. Don't worry about it.
Everything happens for a reason,
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's awesome. All right, Sam, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Go follow her on Twitter and all of her work over at Purple Row. And we'll talk to you later, Sam.
All right. Good. Thanks for having me, guys. This was great.
Sam.
No problem.
Thank
All right, Lyndsey, we can get back to you on your allies.
Yeah. So as Christina mentioned, and I forgot, I actually picked out some great Dan Evans quotes about Kim. He is her biggest ally. And so I wanted to touch on that first before I get to my own, because I think it's really important. He said the first meeting she was in, maybe a week in, was one of my favorite memories. She said, why are we wasting time talking about a guy who is like our 10th or 11th pitcher on the staff? Shouldn't we be more focused on the more important components of the team? I remember looking over at Jack. Then I looked at Ron Schuckler. And then I looked at Jerry Reinsdorf. Sorry if I obliterated those names. We all smiled at each other, and we realized we had exactly who we wanted. We had someone who was willing to be opinionated, and her growth as an intern was extraordinary. And, I just want to go off of that and say, yeah, to all those young ladies and daughters, just go to your dreams. Don't let anything stand in your way. Have an opinion. You're not there to just sit and listen to the men or be told what to do. Have an opinion, be strong, instill that in your daughters, all you ladies out there. That's what my dad and mom did for me. And those are definitely my biggest influences. First and foremost, both of my parents loved sports. That is all we did. Every single weekend, all of my brothers were in sports year round. I was very, very, very blessed to be able to be in multiple sports, and all of my brothers were. So I played softball. I was a gymnast. I ran track. I did baseball. And then, like I said, I wanted to play football. So I did play football with them growing up and wrestled with them all the time. So they were huge advocates for me in whatever I did. They always told me that I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I believed them. And so all the young ladies and daughters out there should believe in themselves and just accomplish whatever they want to accomplish. It's totally accessible and doable. And then last but certainly not least, my fiance, who is the founder of DNVR. So Brandon Spano brought me in. I worked retail. And I loved sales, but I knew that I wasn't in love with retail, and I knew that I had kind of reached my ceiling there. And as he was starting BSN Denver, he kept going through salespeople left and right, and he couldn't keep anybody that wanted to just kind of keep grinding. BSN Denver, nobody knew and nobody cared about. So it was really hard to sell a product that nobody knew anything about. And I looked at him and I said, I can. And as we debated how great of an idea that was for a while. He decided to bring me on, and I've just learned so much from him. And he's been a great leader, a great motivator for me, and a great, great ally. So that's mine.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I think that quote, though, really resonates with me. Like you talking about her speaking up and every man in the room saying, wow, what a great opinion she has, right? Like I feel like women in this industry need to find men that saw that as an opinion and not as a nuisance. And I think I need to give a quick shout out to like my mentors, Robert Davis, who's with the San Jose Quakes now, and Jared Dillon, who's the CMO at the Tampa Bay Lightning. And just when I was starting in the industry, I'm going to humble myself a little bit. I had a hard time between opinionated and arrogant. And they did a really good job of helping me decipher between the two as someone who was just really rough around the edges, this Bostonian with a really disgusting accent. No, I'm just teasing. They loved my
I don't
accent,
hear the accent.
Yeah, it's gone now. But I think just like having the two of them being like, hey, like, that's a great idea, or hey, like tone it down a bit, and someone who just really like wants to see the best for you, as opposed to just sit in the corner intern. Like you need to surround yourself, no matter you're going into a leadership position or you're coming in as an intern. Like it's very important to see people that are going to help you thrive, as opposed to stifle your opinion. So I thought like that just resonated with me so hard when you read that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of my male allies as well, because I've had so many, and of course I can't name them all, but it all really started with Coach Swope, the high school baseball coach at Cheyenne Mountain High School in Colorado Springs. He really took me on as the manager for the team, and he really fostered my love of baseball, which made an undeniable impact on my future career. And if it weren't for him, I don't think I would have been as encouraged to go to sports as I was. And then, Rod Lakin at Arizona Sports 98.7 was the station manager for the sports radio. And he let me go from intern to technical director and on-air talent in 3 years, which is something that I will always be thankful for him for. Saul Bookman at Fox Sports Arizona, and Jeff Searbaum at the Arizona Diamondbacks. I know I mentioned him before. And then Cody Acevedo, who was at ASU with me all made such a huge impact on my life, which is I'm so grateful for. But two, I want to mention the importance of female allies, because I think it's really easy for us, especially in this industry as women, to be a little overly competitive, especially with other females, and view them as more of competition. And I just want, if anybody takes anything away from this, if women are listening to this who want to work in sports or who are in sports, if a woman is in your field, she's not your competition, she's your sister. And you owe it to that
right.
girl to help her. And because we all have battle scars trying to break into this industry, it has not been easy for any single one of us. We have had to fight to prove our worth and to prove our value. And we have gotten those battle scars along the way. And you owe it to her to help her and to foster that love that you have in this industry, and to make sure that she's okay and to support her. And, I would also be remiss if I didn't thank Allie, because Allie has been my champion. She's the main reason that I got my job with DNVR. And if it weren't for Allie, who knows where I would be. Unfortunately, I had a horrible experience with my last job and a boss who was a female. And it's so easy when you're in those situations to be so discouraged, because I always look at women as my sisters who I want to help. And so when you're in a situation with another woman who doesn't want to help you, it's even more discouraging than a man who doesn't want to help you, because we all know what it takes to get here. Like, we've all gone through this. And so if you're in this industry, please be helpful of everyone, every female trying to get into this industry as well, because it's a hard road, and we can make it easier for each other because we are each other's sisters. So it's just as important for females to be allies as it is for males too.
Makayla, you got this job from killing it on your own. I just suggested your name after having a wonderful conversation with you. But I think that's why joining organizations like Denver Women's Sports Collective is so important, because you do meet sisters, you meet other women who are dealing with some of the same issues that you're dealing with. And it's just so nice to have people you can connect with, people you can talk about some of the struggles, and then people who can help you with jobs and see where they can help you in and what field, and really just be like Makayla said, your sister, especially when you need it the most. I think for me, when I talked to Makayla over the phone, she had just reached out about learning more about DNVR and how my process of getting a job at DNVR had been. And we just talked for, I think our conversation was like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Like, we just got along so well. And I was just like, oh my God, this girl could be like my best friend. Like, I love her. Hopefully it works out here at DNVR. But if not, I was recommending her to go check out other jobs and other positions, because I knew how qualified she is and would be fantastic in a job. So definitely your sisters, and joining something like Denver Women's Sports Collective is just so important and just so much fun, because that's where you get to meet all of these other women. And that's a great transition as to asking you all, what's something you wish you could go back and tell yourself about getting into this industry? Christina, let's start with you.
Well, first off, thank you for the shameless plug, because I was totally going to do it. I was so going to
You
drop
can take over a little more.
Our branding chair is probably like fist pumping somewhere in downtown Denver. So appreciate that.
I'm also a member of the USC. I'm on the social committee. So everybody join the USC. It's the best thing
you
here in Denver.
Give them a follow.
We got to give Stacy Vega a shout out. She's been absolutely tremendous. She's a great ally. She has really taken any intern at her current position under her wing. She is the first person to be in your corner, and she's obviously just a tremendous asset to our organization. So shameless plug for her as well if she's watching.
Yeah,
definitely go follow them on social media though. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Yes,
we have a great speaker series coming up next month as well. So if you love these kind of live interactive events and sports conversations, we have 4 coming up in the month of December. So,
and we have people watching on the live stream. If you guys have any questions for us, definitely put them in the comments and we'll answer them.
There's all the shameless plugging that I can.
Yeah,
so
did we steal your thunder? I'm sorry.
No. Oh my God, no. No, and DWSC is a fantastic group. It's opened the doors for a lot of younger girls who have contacted me and said, hey, like, I'm trying to get in this. Unfortunately, a lot of places that are in our business are on hiring freezes. So then it's kind of like, what's the next step that you can do? And that's introducing and connecting and networking. And I think that is a very big first step into the industry. And for what I would tell anybody that's coming into the industry in general is, push past your comfort zone, push past your limits. Excuse me, tongue twister. Because at the moment you think you've had enough and you've reached your limits, you can't do any more. If you push just a little bit more, you'll realize that your limits are much further than what you thought. And I think a comfort area in that comfort zone might be not feeling super comfortable about reaching out to somebody via LinkedIn and saying, hi, I'm interested in what you do. I want to learn more and I want to connect and I want to network. Or, going to a networking event that you don't know anybody and then starting a conversation with somebody that you really clearly don't know. I mean, we're starting our own in March, starting our own podcast for DWSC, and the host I met at a networking event that we were hosting with at the Broncos Stadium at Empower Stadium. So you never know who you're going to be talking to and what kind of doors they're going to help open for you. And I think if you push past that limit just a little bit, you'll realize you can go a lot further and then a lot further. And then you're realizing that you're running 2 miles and you're like, wow, this was impressive. So shameless plug for DWSC, but I'd also like to say, going to DNVR bar, for example, and sitting down at the bar and having a drink and not being afraid to kind of sit there and say, hey, I don't know you, but you're sharing a beer and that's great. Let's talk sports. You never know who you're talking to when you go to these places. And I think that that's extremely important. And I think it's just a great opportunity to get your name out there. But don't hesitate to reach out to any of these ladies on this live stream and say, hey, I watched you. You're inspiring, or you had some great information. Can I learn more? Because I guarantee you that you're going to have that conversation. They're going to connect you to this person and then this person and then this person. And next thing you know, you're in sports. So yeah, definitely get out of your comfort zone and start talking.
Yeah, I totally endorse that 100%. I also want to say, make no mistake, this is hard work. You got to put your nose to the grindstone. The reason that Makayla is here is because she didn't give up on reaching out to Allie. She was confident enough in what she could bring to the table and what she had done in previous roles with other big organizations. And she knew who to contact, who to follow, who to pester. Because let me tell you, in sales of any kind, that is what it's all about, is persistence, right? And you are selling yourself and you are selling what you can bring to an organization or to a sports industry or whatever you may be doing. So just know that in all of this, that it is at the bottom of it all, really, really hard work. And Kim started out as an intern, and you can't be ashamed and you can't think that you already are deserving of something or any of that. You have to work from the bottom up, no matter what you're doing. And so that's what I want to just tell young ladies out there, is that, we live in as the world is changing and we're more accepting of women in a lot of these roles. Make no mistake, you are not just deserving of it because you are a female. You will earn your way to get there, just like the rest of them that trailblazed, like Kim Eng.
And I think too, like a lot of people assume I got into this industry with the help of my grandparents. Like one piece of advice I would give myself is do use your resources. It'll make it a lot easier on you.
Yeah.
Kind of. I just had this hard mentality of like, no, I'm going to do it on my own, which thankfully I was able to, but I probably would have gotten there a lot faster had I leaned on the people who believed in me or that had resources at other places. But I always tell this story to people that I talk to, especially people graduating college. I spent my entire senior year in the library applying to jobs. I had 6 internships on my resume, all in sports. It became a bit of a joke. I kept a spreadsheet of how many jobs I applied to, and the final number was 438. Wow. And I got one phone call. Dude. And that was from Robert Davis. And I was going to school in Boston at the time. I flew to San Diego on my 22nd birthday, had the interview on my birthday, didn't tell a soul it was my birthday, didn't want any empathy of any kind. And I moved across the country just because I was passionate for it. Quite frankly, a job that paid $14 an hour. I mean, it seems great. You sit around and watch baseball all day. like that's the mentality that people have, and it's got to be just this luxuriously high paying job, right? Because look at this player salaries, you know. And I think that just opening that door for people being like, listen, like this is competitive. There's a lot of people that want to be in this industry. I think right now during this time of COVID, setting yourself apart. Like, I think when we started just this discussion of founding DWSC, and I started in March, and a lot of people are like, why don't you wait? Like, why don't you wait till things go back to normal? And I'm just like, why? Like, why? I have the time. I have the people behind me that are going to help me. I think it's just not giving up. Like, there's going to be so many times that you're going to be told no when you're interviewing for jobs. And it might come down to you and one other person. That person had one more internship than you, or they have one better connection than you. And I think it's just like turning around, asking how you can improve, how you can be resilient and just move forward. That's the best advice that I can give, because it's going to be, especially right now, I'm sure, and I'm so empathetic to those that are graduating college and trying to get into sports, because it's the hardest situation to be in. But at the end of the day, it's just keep doing what you're doing, connecting with people. There's a lot of people who aren't lasting because they're like, this is really hard, and this is really hard on me, and I just don't want to stick around for this. We work in a live events business, and there's no live events, like as simple as that. So I think that just being encouraging and giving that type of advice, it's like, listen, I spent a whole year emailing people, asking to talk with them. There's people at certain teams that I won't mention that said, I don't have time for you. And it's what you have to remember is like, these people are going to get in the industry either way. So you're either going to be there to help them get there or you're not. So I think just find those people that are going to be in your corner and just keep at it. That's literally the best advice that I can give.
Yeah, I definitely want to add to that too, because I think my advice for people who want to get into this industry, and advice that I would have given my younger self, kind of relates to what what Erin said about, all the no's that you're going to face. I can't even tell you the amount of times I got told no when I was applying for jobs after school. Even in school, when I was, working freelance and I had various part-time jobs and I was trying to turn those jobs into full-time jobs, I got told no so many times. And I just wish that I would have known that everything really does happen for a reason. And the reason that I got told no was that so I could get told yes when I applied for a job at DNVR. And DNVR is the exact place that I need to be right now. And so
isn't that the best feeling? I'll never forget the phone call that I got the job in San Diego, and I was like, thank God. Like, I can't do number 437. Okay. Like,
after I got off the phone with Brandon, I sobbed because
I called my best friend. We met in the quad and we just jumped up and down. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I mean, like I had just had, my first job after college was a nightmare of an experience, which is unfortunate for anybody because, it's your first job after school. And I had waited 5 months because I couldn't find anything. And when I finally got it, I was so excited. And when it didn't turn out, it was so discouraging. But then, that didn't work out. And then the pandemic hit. And then, I was in line to get a job at another organization. And then I was one of two people. And then the pandemic hit and they're like, sorry, we're in a hiring freeze. And then, I reached out to Allie, and Allie was like, well, let me see what I can do. And so after all those no's and being told no so many times and being so discouraged and so frustrated and questioning, why am I not good enough? Why can't I get a job? What's wrong with me? I finally got that yes. And so I promise you, to anybody listening, you will get a yes at some point. And I promise you it's going to be the perfect yes. And so all of these no's, they're going to turn into a yes. And all those no's will have been for a reason. So keep at it, because the only other option is to not have a job. And that's just, nobody wants that. Just keep going. Everything, I swear, I promise you, everything happens for a reason. I can't imagine being anywhere else. And this is exactly where I need to be. So just keep going.
I think I would give my younger self 2 pieces of advice. And one of them, Christina, you kind of touched on, but it's don't be afraid. And I know that's so hard, especially when you're younger, but just don't be afraid. Take those chances. If you really want something, you will get it. You will put your heart and soul into it, and your hard work will shine. And then the other thing I would tell myself is be authentic, be you, because that's what people want, especially looking in job interviews and coworkers. They want someone like Makayla and I, who you can spend 2 hours talking to and not even realize that it's been 2 hours. People, you're going to work alongside your coworkers every single day at all time of the days. You have to be you and let your inner self shine, and don't be scared of doing that just because you're nervous. What if I say the wrong thing? What if people judge me online? Same with being on camera. I was so terrified of saying the wrong thing because women do get criticized a lot more when we mess up. I was so scared. But no, you're human. People mess up. Take ownership when you do and just keep going, because that's what people want. People want that authenticity and for you to just be your true self. So those are the two things I would tell myself, and I recommend to anyone else I talk to, because that's definitely helped me now 4 or 5 years later stand out.
Can I add something onto that? So one of the things that I think is going to be a huge influence going post-COVID in everybody's world is that our lives, our personal lives, have been exposed. And so there is now a larger respect for women and for teachers, I must say, going back into the workforce, because I want to say that I don't have the actual statistics, so please forgive me, but there was a very high turn around, or what is the word I'm looking for?
Turnover.
Turnover. It's not turnover. A lot of women left the workforce because they were the ones that were being depended on for support of their family. So when kids were not in school and, things were just kind of starting to go haywire, all these women had to leave the force. And now once everything goes back to normal, they're going to have to come back and kind of start over in a sense. And so COVID has really exposed, what is really going on behind the scenes when you're at work. And that's something that I think women are going to have to adjust to as well, because there is now no secret in my organization that I'm a mom. I can't hide that. My kid was on my lap during meetings, so I can't hide that, right? And that's something that, now we know that Sam has a cat. You can't hide your life.
A cute one. Got a cat.
A very cute cat.
Yeah.
You can't hide your life anymore. So it's going to be a different, we had to go through a shift and a change and fight for jobs, because jobs were starting to become scarce because of COVID. But when we go post-COVID, it's going to be a whole different fight. So keeping your chin up, pushing forward, and trying to tell yourself it's going to be okay is really important. That's the whole point of what I was trying to get towards.
Great point.
Lyndsey, do we have any more ads, or are we good?
We're
on
good.
The ad side? Awesome. We have some comments. Someone asked about Sue Bird. I don't believe she's part of the Nuggets front office anymore. I think that was a 1-year deal. But seeing her working with the Nuggets was fantastic. Seeing Brittany Bolin working with the Broncos. We actually in one of the
at our one of our events, and she was awesome.
Which was so awesome to have. Another reason why you should join Denver Women's Sports Collective. But seeing this happening closer to home here in Denver is just so exciting. And we're just going to keep seeing it, because that's the way the world is turning. And I just want to thank everyone for being on this podcast, everyone who's listening and watching still. Thank you for hanging out. And again, if you want to reach out to any of these ladies, Christina, Lyndsey, Makayla, Erin, please do so. We'll add it in the podcast description, their contact information. And then, of course, if you want to join Denver Women's Sports Collective, you can go to their website or follow them on social media. Any parting thoughts from you ladies?
Women are the best.
Yeah, they are.
What's that?
I said women are the best. We rock.
Woo.
Yeah, we do.
I want to kind of reiterate, since you're talking about DWSC, if you are a male and you are supporting women in sports, or if you're family members, you can be an ally and sign up with us. If you're interested, go ahead and go to that website, and you can email us to find out more information. We will be looking at hosting ally events where you can come and meet the women and support the women. So it is not limited to just women in the sports and events and marketing fields. If you just support us in general, you are more than welcome to come and join us.
That is awesome. Don't forget to follow them on social media. And tomorrow, you guys will be back to having Drew and Patrick on. We want to thank them for allowing us.
Coming back?
Next Thursday.
I was promised one.
Yeah, this is our
I thought this was our thing now.
Sorry, Drew and Patrick.
As Patrick
We'll
said, same time next Thursday.
We'll meet with you after this.
Thank you guys, ladies. Thank you guys, ladies. Wow. Okay. Brain. Thank you, ladies. And thank you, Patrick and Drew. We will talk to you guys later. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys. Bye.